Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves. I want to welcome you all. I'm kind of excited for tonight. We've got some intros and reminders as usual. So please remember to like the Leather Elves on Facebook, and then you'll get notifications when we go live. Check out the Leather Elves Facebook page for surprise sales, pop up events, things like that. And I can tell you, the workshop is almost all set up in our new location. So we're kind of excited about that. And we're going to start doing some fun stuff. And follow the Leather Elves on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So those are the usual. It is Friday the 13th with Jason, Diane. Don't think we didn't think about that already. But it should be a lot of fun. Oh. And this is why I love Nick. So it's going to be a fun night. I'm really looking forward to it. I've known Jason for quite a while and really enjoy having these conversations with him. So let's get started. Hey, Jason.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? So I've got to read your
I'm
bio.
doing well.
The formalities. Got to get the formalities out of the way. So, for those of you that don't know, Dr. Jason Crean is a biologist who has raised birds since the age of 12. His current focus is the raising of arasaris and the Sierra parakeet, though he keeps a variety of softbills in aviaries in Florida. He also teaches courses in zoo biology and animal nutrition at St. Xavier University, and he acts as a zoo consultant. There is a much longer bio that I have had the pleasure of reading for Jason at conferences before, but we thought we'd keep it short so that we could have more chat. So, how's it going?
Thank you for that. It's going well. Now that I'm down in Florida, things are going even better.
Nice. I gotta say, we're in Maine now, and we're really excited about it. We love the new town that we live in. We live in Pittsfield, Maine. Shout out to Pittsfield, Maine, and we really are enjoying it. But it was like 86 degrees here yesterday, so Maine can get warm. I'm just telling you. Hi, Dorothy. How's it going? So, Jason, I'm going to ask this question, which I'm sure you've been asked. Oh, wait, I have one thing to say before we do that. Joanna Roth, I noticed, is on. I need to shout out happy birthday to Joanna's daughter, Bernice. So happy birthday, Bernice. Miss you. All right. So, Jason, what's your earliest animal memory? We all have them.
Oh, boy. Well, I know my earliest bird memory is when my neighbor across the street got a cockatiel. Totally taken with its intelligence and the interactivity, and that's really what kickstarted it for me, because I quickly got a cockatiel shortly after that, and then I got a second cockatiel, and then as a result, I had many cockatiels. So, yeah, that's probably my earliest memory.
So yeah, cockatiels are like the gateway bird, you know.
Oh yeah.
So if you know that my passion is really enrichment and training, but primarily enrichment, what's your favorite enrichment offering?
Anything that makes them work for their food. But I would say things like baffle cages, things like that are probably one of my favorites, because you can use them over and over and over again. You can use a variety. You can make them novel almost every time. So you can make, you can add things to them, and that's probably one of my favorites, especially because it can be used beyond birds. Right. I've worked with primates and things like that, and it's just great to see them really, working for their food, because they prefer that. They enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, all right. So you've got this really great aviary now in Florida, and we're all super jealous. But Can you take us on a tour?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to spin my phone around here. Um, let's I have tremors, so let's just see how still I can keep things without making everybody sick. So I'm in my main aviary here. I have a main aviary that's about 800 square feet, um, and it's about 18 feet tall. We've got about 20 different species in here, and then I have peripheral aviaries that run around this one that have a colony of zebra finches that we use or will be using to do our nutrition studies through the lab that we started at the university, as well as my toucans, my Arasaris, who officially have started breeding. We found eggs just the other day in one of their logs, so we're super excited about that. Out here, we've got, I don't know if you can see them, but there's Lillian finches sitting on the branch there. Everyone says, "Boy, they're so brightly colored," but when they're among plants, it's really hard to see them. Um, can you see
So,
them there?
Jason, how do you, yep, you can see them.
There we
So,
go.
how do you decide what species to house together?
Um, it really depends on um, the natural history. So you need to know if these birds are aggressive by nature. Um, like I can't keep toucans in here because they would eat the smaller birds. They're omnivores,
Mhm.
but they can be pretty aggressive and eat smaller birds. So what we have out here are things like the triangular spotted doves that you see there. There's one there, and then there's one up in the corner on one of those nesting platforms. Um, and then the different types of we've got different types of doves like green winged doves, and then up in the vines. There's a delay with my camera, so I'm just trying to make sure that it's caught up. There we go. You could probably see the tanagers up there.
Mhm.
We've got paradise tanagers, and that's thunder. You can hear that. Violaceous euphonia. So
So
these are
you
all
should all
birds
know.
that.
I was just going to say you should all know that Jason is risking life and limb in a thunderstorm to show us his aviary. So,
It's okay. It's
uh,
okay. It's Florida. We haven't had any rain, so it's welcome. Um, but if you let me just kind of do a span here. So this all of this vine is passion flower vine, and it's grown naturally where a bird pooped out a passion flower seed, and it all came from this one root. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. There we go. So that one stem right there led to that entire vine that has grown there, and it will flower and
oh my
fruit,
goodness.
and it's continuing to grow. And I'm pretty excited about this.
So that was one of my questions. So there's obviously a lot of planting that's involved in creating this outdoor space. And so how much maintenance
He's
does
he's not
the
hearing your
planting?
question right now, Robin. He's
Oh, he's
reconnecting.
not.
No,
You have to start again. Okay.
I'm here. No, I'm here. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying that's okay. You're braving the thunderstorm. It's okay. So how much maintenance is required for the plantings that you have outside?
So there's really not much maintenance at all. Being a zoo consultant, you learn what works and what doesn't,
Right.
especially when you work with zoos that have been around for a long time and have very old exhibits and buildings. But when it comes to, out here, we put down heavy rock. And so, just rinsing the rock is all that's needed, for out here. And it keeps the birds, it keeps it pretty sanitary out here. And then you've got sprinklers out here that water the plants when we don't have rain, natural watering, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. So generally, I don't have to do a whole lot of maintenance out here, cleaning wise, at least.
Okay. So what about replanting? So I know we did a zookeepers conference many years ago, and it was a joint conference with the Association of Horticulture, zoo horticulturists. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of animosity among the horticulturists because the zookeepers' animals kept eating their plantings.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, it was a wonderful dialogue. We kind of talked to the horticulturists about this is why you're doing what you're doing, and it's great, and we really appreciate it. But it is an issue. So, what about that,
Yeah.
Jason? Is there a lot of replanting that needs to happen?
So it depends on the species that you're keeping out here. I'm not keeping any citizens, no pair that are loose out here, because obviously they're chewers, and I'm not as concerned about them chewing the plants as I am the mesh
Hmm.
that's surrounding the aviary. So the parrots that I have out here are the Sierra parakeets, and what we did was we wanted to give them as natural an environment as possible. So back there, you'll see a suspended cage that is
Hmm.
kind of hidden among the brush, and the birds love it. They like the privacy. They like the natural rain. They have shelter in that suspended aviary, but they also have nest boxes because they are breeding. And these are the Sierra parakeets, by the way, and those are pretty rare in the U.S. But we have 4 unrelated pairs, and all have fertile eggs right now. And one pair just started hatching them 2 days ago. So we're excited
Very.
about producing some genetically diverse individuals that we can make new pairs from. But
I
generally, I don't have to do a whole lot of replanting because the birds are pretty non-destructive out here.
Well, and I think too that's a really nice feature. And even if people were going to house parrots in a situation like this, and you took all the precautions and made sure the mesh was safe and the your structure was parrot proof, as
Mm-hmm.
parrot proof as it can be, the suspended cage is a nice option because the
Yeah.
plantings do go in front of it, and it allows them that privacy because when we were working with zoos, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Jason, a lot of times there isn't a space like that for animals. And, as
Mm-hmm.
far as animal welfare is concerned, that constantly being in the forefront. And I think when we've got birds in human care, we've got birds in our homes, we really want to think about, do we give them that space to kind of do their own thing, to go and
Right.
not interact with us if they want to?
Yeah, exactly. And when I train my students at the university to do focal or scan behavior sampling, collecting behavioral data in the long term, um, that's one thing we talk about is out of view. Out of view is important, and we need to know how often they're out of view because that may mean that they need some kind of shelter. Now that most zoos are monitoring for animal welfare all the time, and they're
Mhm.
the zoos that we've worked with are looking at hormones, stress hormones, and things like that to make sure their animals are getting the enrichment that they need, and really supporting that optimal welfare. Um, and with that is do they have shelter? Can they escape from whatever they need to escape from? And that's definitely something that's important to consider, especially if you have some secretive animals, and that can go for predators too. Predators can be stressed if they don't have some shelter, depending on what species they are.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know that exhibit design is a huge component in animal welfare. And I think, there are people who specialize in that, who that's what they do. They, work on the exhibit design. And I've done some of it as far as built-in enrichment is concerned. I know you've done some exhibit design. And I think it's about how do we create the optimum environment in a setting where, animals are not actually in nature. And I think, excuse me, I think a lot of that has to do with how do we do plantings? How do we create that separate space, and at the same time make them so that you can, do behavior data collection, so that you can do those kind of things. So, um, why don't we, Jason, is there anything else you want us to see outside? Oh, I might not have him anymore. All right. Why don't we're going to see if we can move Jason back inside. Because we don't want him to, have to deal with the elements anymore. But, there's a perfect example. So when we've got, birds in outdoor aviaries, we need to think about, is there a place for them to seek shelter? Is there a place where they can be in the elements? So, I mean, there's nothing better than seeing a bird out in the rain, a bird like totally enjoying and soaking up all that rain and just really doing what comes naturally. We install misters, we put them in the roofs of aviaries, and that when that real rain happens, it's kind of exciting. It's nice to have that option. And when we're designing things, we want to keep that in mind. So if you're thinking about designing an outdoor aviary, you really want to consider, is there a shelter space? Is there, what kind of plants are you going to plant? We'll talk more about that too. Um, is there a space that's full sunlight? Is there a space where the birds can get cover from the sunlight? Depending on where you live, it may be super hot in the middle of the day, and that may not be appropriate for a particular species of bird. Our parrots are very adaptive. There's always discussion online about it. When is it too cold for my birds? When is it too cold for them to be outside? When is it too warm for them to be outside? And they will adapt, and they will let you know as well. I talk a lot about that behavior and observing behavior, and your birds will tell you. They'll let you know when it's time to come in, when it's time to be outside. The Frank says his bird's going out tomorrow with light rain, whether he likes it or not, or she likes it or not. So it happens. So do we have Jason back? We may not. The joys of live stream. So, Jason, can you hear me?
You should be able to hear you now.
Okay, I'm back.
Jason. Okay, so we were just talking about how are there any species that you want us to see, or is there anything you need us to see outside, or do we save you from the elements and bring you inside?
I'll walk around to talk a little bit about the plants that we are actively growing for the birds as well, outside of the aviary. But we do have mango, guava, different types of guava in here, some citrus. So we are growing plants in here that the birds actually will consume. Some of them, like the guavas, the fruit doves in here will eat the guavas before they even come off the tree. They do like to start on them before they're ripe. So yeah, there's quite a bit of food out here that we grow so that they can eat them.
Very cool. While you were gone, we were discussing weather and how we need to allow our birds to be in the weather sometimes. There is a question.
Oh, the birds! Yeah, and it's funny because people will ask me often about how do we bring the birds in, and I'm like, they love it outside. They love the weather. They love to get wet. So they do enjoy the elements. They have shelter out there, of course, but it's amazing to watch them It's amazing to watch them, interact with the elements. So
So we
this, yeah, go ahead.
no, we just had go ahead. We can ask that question when you get inside.
Okay. So out here, we've got all kinds of things that we've things like this is a
Your Wi-Fi does not like it out there at the
I let it
curb.
feed the flowers to the
Oh,
birds. They absolutely love them.
Jason, we're only getting about half of what you're saying out there.
Definitely lots of blue. Sorry.
We're only getting about half of what you're saying outside. The Wi-Fi is not
Oh,
thrilled.
gotcha.
We can
But okay,
do
basically, can you hear me? Okay.
no.
Okay, I'll go in.
Still looks really cool though. I have to go. So tomorrow there's a plant sale in town, and I'm going to go, but I kind of don't think I'm going to be able to get any of that. But a girl can dream, can't she? I don't know. So we do have a couple of questions that we will get to as soon as we get Jason back in the house. Excuse me. Oh, there he is. And magically, he's in his office. Um, so um, we had a couple of questions. Carrie Ellen asked, are you covering flights with the outbreak of avian flu?
So I have not the peripheral flights that are the shorter ones have a roof on them. They have a solid roof, and then there's some solid roofs across here. But I have spikes on the top so that birds don't land up there, and so I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's different in different locations, different, it differs county to county. And then Cindy asked, assuming our aviary is predator proof, what about leaving the birds out overnight?
So it depends on your comfort. All of my birds are out 24/7. That the aviary birds, they're out there all year round. They're acclimated to temperature fluctuations and things like that. Outside of severe storms, that would be it. Like if we had a serious hurricane, what I built out there, the main aviary as well as the peripheral aviaries can handle winds of over probably about 160, 165 miles an hour. So we're pretty well protected. But yeah, well, we would have that would be the only time where we would have to bring them in.
Yeah, Carrie Ellen says that Carrie Ellen's at Bird Gardens of Naples, and she says she has solid roofs and has been covering the tops of open flights with plastic for now. And yeah, so I mean, it's really what you can accomplish and what you can do safely and dependent on what your situation is. So Terry planted hibiscus and they ate them all and enjoyed them. There we go. Hibiscus is bird crack as far as I'm concerned. I mean, would you agree, Jason?
Yeah. Edible flowers in general, if the flower is edible for humans, it's edible for them. And so I grow all kinds of edible flowers out front. We have herb flowers like oregano and basil. We feed those flowers all the time. We do that was my property. That was my property before all the plants you just saw in the raised beds. And this was everything before we had any plants or animals there. Yeah, that was those are my friends Zach and Matt putting in the raised beds back there, and then we built the aviary around that. So we have some aviaries inside the pool area here, but all the birds have been moved out. So all those little plants you see back there, that's how it started. And that aviary that we were just in, where you couldn't see, your hand in front of your face, that's basically what happened. These plants have all taken over and thrived out there. So
That is so cool. And your
yeah,
front
and
yard
that's
too,
that was
right?
the beginning. Yeah, that was the beginning of what you just saw out there. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. So, all right. So again, let's jump back to enrichment for a second. So, if we want to plant, somebody wants to plant an enrichment garden, say. So, what's the difference between enrichment and diet?
Well, diet can be enrichment, but so like there's plants we grow for food, and those would be like our fruit plants, because fruit is a very important part of parrot diets. Um, we but we also, and other types of things where they'll eat the leaves and things like that. But also, what you're seeing here on the screen are those peripheral aviaries where the toucans are, and that's the run behind it. You can see above there. So, and that's my living room. I don't know why that picture's in there, but um, but when it comes to other types of enrichment, like I love banana leaves for the
Mm-hmm.
birds. They don't eat them, but they love to destroy them. And they're
Right.
naturally fibrous and they shred. I mean, they're really great enrichment. And those are nasturtium flowers there, and that whole plant, even those round leaves, those are all edible. And so if the birds eat them, fantastic. If they just play with them, like these pansies here, they love pansy flowers. Um, that's great. That's great too. But it really depends on the you're growing things specifically to supplement their diet. Like I have blueberry fanatics everywhere here. So my fruit doves fly to me in the morning waiting for blueberries. My toucans, like this one here, this is one of our arsaris, they love blueberries. And so, having those foods is really, really important. Like the Taracos here, they love blueberries. But, we need to, I also throw other things in there. So I may throw leaves on top of the food so that they have to move the leaves to get to what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends on competition because other birds are enrichment for each other. So, I try not to have a single pair of anything out there in the aviary. I try to make sure that there are different individuals that they can interact with. But like, yeah, all these finches. But that type of thing. There's lots of different types of enrichment. The finches all sitting out on that banana leaf. They eat. I'll even spray that down, and they'll bathe right on the leaf. So that's enrichment too. So there's just all kinds of different types of things you can do.
I love banana leaves because we used to use them. I When I work with zoos, especially in warmer places, especially like down in Florida and things like that. We would use the banana leaves for the citizens, but also for the birds of prey. They're not going to eat them, and if they do eat them, you just get a green pellet. Is what happens. When you cast up the pellet, it's green. Um, but it's really you can use them to wrap other food items in. You can use them just, as a shreddable. You can use them, like you said, over the top of things so that they have to go underneath. The banana leaves are just so diverse. And if you live in a place where it's warm enough to grow them, I think that's, the way to go. So yeah, it's about, for me, there's a lot about the presentation. How are you offering these different items? It's not necessarily here's the bowl. It's how am I going to use these different fresh items that you've got growing, all these different plants that you're growing. How do you use them and how do you present them differently,
Right.
so that it becomes enriching?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, with competition, we also have to be careful. in that I have 6 different feeding stations out there for fresh food. So the birds. There's my dog who's totally pathetic. But I have the Nicobar pigeons like this one here. That's a juvenile, a picture of its juvenile, and then here it is in one of those feeding stations, eating, foraging, and we those out so that the birds have to go into the feeding box, and then there's less threat behavior going on about like this is my food, because they can't see the other birds unless they're actually in front of the box. So those types of things we have to keep in mind. Now, once again, I don't have any birds that are like fiercely protective or aggressive or territorial out there, because I know the species that I'm keeping. That's Sirius. He's my black palm. He's not in there because he would destroy things. But when it comes to feeding for enrichment, we put the food. We have several different types of foods in ceramic trays, and then those go inside of those boxes so that the birds have to go into there and grab what they want and then leave. Yeah, that's all the fresh food we feed every morning: fruits, sprouts, grains, all kinds of stuff.
Nice. So we did have a question. Julie asked, where do you source your plants, or are they all started from seed?
So from a variety of different places. Your best bet is to go to your local nurseries and talk to people. Talk to people about where they're getting their plants, and that sort of thing. With a lot of the big box stores, they obviously are going to treat them with herbicides and pesticides to make sure that they can last long enough to sell at the store, right? But even if you get plants from there, if you can repot them, water them, and those sorts of things, you can end up using those pretty quickly. Now, I'm not as concerned with a lot of these plants that like the ficus in here, because the birds aren't eating the ficus. They're using it to nest. That was a before and after picture. That's the after. What's left in Sirius's bowl. And then these are the papayas I've grown and some of the citrus that I feed the birds. And then, yeah, that's the whole spread in the morning. So, lots of different types of foods so that there's diversity, which is enriching in and of itself because they have choice. And I know you're a big fan of choice. And, we have to do, I'm a scientist, so I like to experiment. So we put certain amounts of food out there, and then, we check it at noon, and we check it at 2, we check it at 4, and we see what food items are high value, which ones are disappearing. All the berries are gone in the first 15 minutes. Like that's an obvious one. So then we have to decide how many bowls get berries. All of them get berries now because all of them are exploited. This is a dove that didn't get its berries in the morning, so it's yelling at me. But having those different feeding stations, each feeding station has a diversity of food. So if finches are visiting there, there's microgreens, there's sprouted seeds, and things like that for them to consume. So we do those experiments to make sure that everybody's getting what they need, and that there is indeed food being used. And then what's left at the end of the day, here we compost everything.
And I think, that's another good way. We've talked about this before. Another good way to do, if you're doing training, if you're using part of your daily diet as reinforcement for training, you can observe. If you know what goes in, you can observe what's gone first, and that's a high value food item for that particular bird, and then you use it.
Right there.
If I was going to train a Tarocco, blueberries would be it. I hate to generalize like that, but across the board, it's a favorite with Tarocco. It's not, that's not a surprise. But I think, we talked about working for their food. And, the big fancy word is contra freeloading. So we'll throw it out there. And I always tell people to use that one at the next cocktail party they go to, and people will think they're smart. It just means working for their food. And I think that's essential, because we can do all these things. We can, offer shreddables, we can offer destructible enrichment, which is absolutely important. But a lot of what you can do with gardening and with, growing things on your own, you can create those opportunities. You can create the shreddables. You can create the foraging opportunities. You can have them contra freeloading. They're picking, they're working to get that food. It's not just here you go. So I think, that's really important.
Hmm. Absolutely.
But so we've got Joanna says she bought her first garden tower. Exciting. Can't wait to set it up and grow their own vegetables and edible flowers. I think that's a great idea. And foraging materials too, I think are you can use. There are so many different things that you can get out of a garden that may not be something that they're going to eat, but it can be part of a foraging opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, they're not eating the ficus, they're nesting in the ficus.
Mhm.
But Jason's in the garden. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Um, but there's definitely things that are not edible that, and I think we get hung up sometimes on what am I going to do? That's not an edible leaf and the bird's going to eat it. So what do you say when that question comes up, Jason?
Um, so it's pretty easy to do to look things up and see what's toxic and what's not. Um, I hear a lot of nutrition myths. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum. Like tomatoes are, you can't feed tomatoes to parrots. They're terrible. They're acidic. And I'm like, or citrus fruits are acidic. I'm like, yeah, but they're not harmful.
Right.
Peaches are actually more acidic than most citrus fruits are, believe it or not. But we don't complain about peaches. So I think that there's a lot of myth out there around what we can and can't offer the birds. Um, but we offer, you can totally offer them a little tomato. You can offer them a little citrus. You can offer them a little bit of everything that's whole food. Don't feed them pizza and pasta. Like those aren't good for us. So like don't feed those to your birds. And I know that I'll get hate mail over that, but we need to treat birds like birds. Like we need to respect birds for what they are and feed them appropriately. But when it comes to offering things that they maybe won't eat, like a lot of birds don't like kale or those other types of brassica leaves, which is collard greens, mustard greens. But you can totally wrap food in those, and then they may even eat some of them. Who knows? So I grow ornamental kale because our tortoises seem to love that more. But we offer that to the birds. They'll destroy it. I don't know how much they're eating, but that's enrichment. I'm totally okay with that. So and I grow chicory for the Sierra parakeets because they love those bitter greens as well. And so there's just lots of different things that we can offer. Squash leaves, squash flowers, things like that. Um, any of the squashes, summer or winter, you can cut in half and you got a receptacle. I know someone had posted here that they fed peppers. Peppers are hollow for the most part. You can shove other things in there and offer them. And they love the pepper seeds too. So leave the seeds. So yeah, there's lots of there's literally thousands of whole food items we can offer as part of enrichment.
And I think too, one of the things to think about with the bitter greens, like the kale and things like that. If you have a bird that's really active and willing to engage in enrichment, it's that, like you said, wrapping food in those leaves. And it really, if you've got a bird that's just super curious, willing to investigate things, that can entice them to eat that. And I do the opposite sometimes. If there's a bird that's kind of hesitant to interact with a toy, I'll put food items with the toy, and then it becomes, oh, this is a good thing because the food is there. So we had a couple questions. Melissa asked, Is hyssop hummingbird mint safe for birds and parrots to eat?
It is what so I'd have to look it up to be sure, but most mints are totally fine. Um, we grow peppermint out front, and the birds, some of the birds love it, some of the birds just leave it alone. Um,
Okay.
but mint in general is a pretty good herb to feed. All the herbs are fine, oregano and basil and dill. I mean, all of those are fine and great to mix in. To whatever mash you're making up, chop or whatever. All those herbs are great.
And then Cindy asked, can birds eat too many peppers? If you're asking my husband, anyone can eat too many peppers, but
Um, Peppers, I mean, too much of anything can be problematic, which is why portion control is pretty important. When it comes to whole food, I don't want my birds just picking out what they like and then leaving everything else. So, with large birds, I tend to go 3 tablespoons of fresh food in the morning and 3 tablespoons in the evening. And then medium-sized birds 2 and 2, and smaller birds 1 tablespoon and 1 tablespoon. We tend to put lots of food out all the time, and then get frustrated when our birds won't eat new things. So it's pretty important that there's some kind of portion control there. And the word moderation gets thrown around a lot, but there's no such thing as moderation if the food is unhealthy. So if it's unhealthy for us, like I said, pizza and pasta, like don't feed those things. There's no such thing as moderation if it's unhealthy, especially with a bird whose body is very tiny. That everything they eat can have a huge impact on them. So if it's not healthy for them, do not offer it. There's no such thing as moderation.
Lori's a pushover birdie mom. She does an amazing job caring for her birds, but she is a pushover. I know that. So that's where that everything in moderation.
We all can be, yeah.
Oh yeah. So we were talking about when you mentioned like oregano and basil, and one of the things I love about those is if you're doing a list of I want to do different categories of enrichment, those things are really aromatic. And so they also meet an olfactory. You can check the olfactory box. And that's another way to do enrichment. Maybe they're not eating it, but they're still, wow, there's still, Nick is having a good time tonight.
Yeah,
There's still that olfactory enrichment that's happening. So, don't get frustrated if you give your bird something like basil or oregano or, something that's very aromatic and maybe they don't eat it. There's still that enrichment value to it. Just, through the scent alone. So,
yeah, and I think you and I had that talk. What was it? It had to be what 10 years ago when we talked about the study that came out about shorebirds having the larger olfactory bulbs, and and you were convinced that you're like, no, I think parrots smell things, and I definitely think that there's some wiring, there's some nervous wiring up there that we just we need to definitely be addressing.
I agree. And I think, my theory, Jason, and we've talked about this, has always been give it a shot. If it's not, if you're sure that it's something that's non-toxic, give it a shot. And, if you put it in there and you get some response, it's, bonus. It's the fireworks. Yay, this is great. If not, okay, you tried it and you made that effort. So I think we need to.
Bamboo. Nick just put bamboo up, and bamboo is a fantastic non-dietary enrichment. I planted bamboo in the back as kind of a guard, like a windbreak, and it gets to about 30 feet tall. But I can go back there and I can just clip it at any time and give it to anybody, and they'll shred it, they'll destroy it, they love it. So
I
even
love
our tortoises,
bamboo.
like them too. Yeah.
Bamboo is one of my favorites, and if you've got the little bit bigger diameter variety of bamboo growing.
Yep.
If you cut that and you cut it in the right place, it's got that natural shelf, the nodules that where it's separated, and you can create different types of foraging tubes with that. Just cap the ends of it, cut a hole in one side, and then you can put things in. And if you happen to have a bird that likes to cache things away, that's a great opportunity. We did a lot of that with ravens and the corvids, just so, well, hello, what Pittsfield neighbor, look at that. And that's who I'm going to the plant sale with tomorrow. So,
Nice.
but
Plant
so
sales
it's,
are dangerous for me.
I know. Well, that's why I have to bring a net. So I think Mark's given her, you can only spend this much. But so let's kind of talk about getting started. So if people want to get started, I have never, in the many, many years that I've been doing this, found a comprehensive list of safe plants. I always take the approach where I look it up, I find, 3, 4 lists, I compare. If it isn't on any of the lists, then I feel okay. So what do you think?
So there is, and I'm looking for it right now because I just had it up, but there is a list. It's got, I think, 1,400 different plant species.
Mhm.
And let me just see if I can find it real quick. Yes,
And I think
it is 1,400. FreeRangeParrots.com has a comprehensive list. I think it was updated just within the last couple of years. And it's got bird safe and toxic, and it even breaks it down if like you can use the wood for perches and things like that. If the herb itself or the flowers themselves are problematic. But freerangeparrots.com has the best list that I have found.
awesome.
There's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of plants out there, so you're not going to get a list that says everything. But overall, you have you definitely a lot of options, tons of options.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think we get stuck with keyboard warriors who do the whole, oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
They read it in, one place and suddenly they're the expert and it's just wrong. And so if you ask a question, which I kind of discourage asking those questions in big groups because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get scary answers. Susan Friedman and I did a talk about parrot mama drama, and you end up with, these people who are like, you're wrong. It's so horrible what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So check your sources or go to a source like that one. I see Lori posted it in the comments. So it's there for people to see, and you can go there and, 1,400, if you go through 1,400, you get like the gold star or something because, it's not necessary, first of all. Second of all, if you do go through that list, then kudos to you. But it is a good option.
And always cross-reference. If you find something on that list, do another search for it because you may find another source. I mean, that's just scientific consensus. That's what we do. We check multiple sources. But I found that one to be the most accurate and the most comprehensive,
Cool.
as of now.
Thank you.
But yeah, starting out, and I know people like when I'm on my group, the Avian Raw Whole Food group, on Facebook, when we hear a lot from people that say, well, I live in an apartment, I don't have room or space. We don't get sun on the side where I can plant something. So there's different ways that we can do. Can I show some visual aids?
Yes, please.
So most people on here, I'm sure, have heard of sprouting, and that's the easiest thing you can do because you can soak many things overnight. And I know Diane Hyde asked about Camet earlier, And Kamut can be fed dry, but it's much, much, much better and much, much, much more digestible if it's fed soaked, at least soaked overnight. And then, give it another day and you can have some sprouts. But the Easy Sprouter from ChinaPrairie.com is my favorite. It's got the cup that has the mesh in the bottom here. You can just pull that out, rinse it, put it right back in the cup. It's super, super easy. It even uses basic physics to increase airflow. You can't get that from a mason jar. So sprouting, if you have room on your kitchen counter to put this cup there, which I know all of you do, don't tell me you don't. Even if you live in a tiny house, you got this. Sprouting is your best bet. It's the easiest and safest thing to do. One other thing to go beyond that is microgreens. And Robin and I have been talking about these for a while. But this, where's the camera? Here we go. There's a little bit of a delay, so I'm trying to keep up. This is 48 hours worth of growth. I've already got microgreens. All I did was wet this came in a kit from TrueLeafMarket.com, super inexpensive, easy to do. And you put this little puck in there, you add water, it expands to kind of act as the temporary soil. And then you just put the seeds on top and add water. And you've already got greens. And, with finches, I'll just throw the cup in there and let them forage themselves. But I'll let this go for a few more days and have some pretty significant greens. And these are super nutrient dense. These are more nutritious than a whole leaf of kale. So, you can get more bang for your buck just doing this on a windowsill. And they don't need direct sunlight.
And just so you guys know, Jason and I have been talking about some stuff. And so keep your eyes on the Leather Elves. We're working on some things to kind of help with that and to make that a little bit easier to offer. It's worth the money, more bang for your buck.
And you can also, this is also from True Leaf Market, another enrichment. This has just a metal screen, and you fill this with water. The screen comes out, and you spread the seeds on the screen so that they're just in the top surface of the water, and it grows right on here. No soil needed, nothing.
Nice.
And then you can literally just put this in with your small birds and let them forage away. So there's lots of really easy and cheap ways to do this stuff. And then you can graduate from microgreens to actual plants and doing things like that.
So what are some, I know some people are hesitant around microgreens. What are some of the pitfalls that are involved with microgreens?
Pitfalls. They're pretty foolproof.
Are they?
I can't think of any problems because you can use them so quick. I mean, you have to use them quick. That's probably one of the pitfalls. Is you can feed them over a few days, but once you clip them, you can't reuse them. So you have to dump it and then start over. But you can get quite a big crop of those microgreens just from a little dish. When it comes to sprouting, you need to make sure you use something that's going to keep, deter mold and things like that, because some of our homes are more prone to growing mold. There's people who sprout with just plain water and never have a problem over decades. But using something like GSE, grapefruit seed extract, in the water that you're dipping your sprouts in helps keep things off. There's good sprouting information at ChinaPrairie.com. Because they kind of started years ago when it was first started. They kind of came up with that whole regimen and the easy sprouter and stuff like that. So you definitely want to visit there. It's a good resource.
Yeah, and Diane posted the link to True Leaf Market as well. So that's another resource for people. I think, overall, I think we all want to be healthier, hopefully. I know I do. I don't do such a great job at it all the time. But I think, if we're planting for ourselves, there's really no reason to not plant things for our birds. And so, Jason, if you had to pick...
And vice versa.
But this
You can eat
right? Our
better.
birds
Your
often,
birds are eating.
I have heard that 1,000 times. My birds eat better than I do. Well, let's fix that. Let's kind of work on that. And I personally really want to start doing more gardening and things like that. And it's good to be outside. And aren't we all like looking forward to being outside more? But if you had to pick, I'm going to put you on the spot. Your top five, because I've never done that before. Your top five things that you think would be the easiest and and well, not safest, but the easiest for people to start. So microgreens obviously is the way to sprouting, and then we graduate to microgreens, and then where do we go from there?
I would say herbs are probably some of your easier things to grow, and you get more bang for your buck because, like you said, there is. It's not just the taste; it's the smells from the oils that are a part of that. Those plants, you can let them go to flower and use the flowers for enrichment. Um, there's all kinds of benefits for the different herbs. And then edible flowers would be another one. These are squash flowers, for example, right here. And you just saw, yeah, those are squash flowers, and you just saw some nasturtium flowers. Um, over the summer in the top half of the U.S., you can pretty much grow any of the edible flowers over the summer: pansies, nasturtiums, calendula, chamomile. I grew chamomile in Chicago once, and then it came back all over the yard every year. So I always had chamomile around. Um, and these are not my birds; they're just in my driveway. They come visit. um, that is in my yard. Those are butterflies that are eating some of my plants.
Was that a
The
fiddlehead fern? Was that a fern? It looked like a fiddlehead fern that was in one of the
they're
pictures.
yeah. I mean, I've seen pictures of those in here, so probably
Mhm.
that's ginger, shampoo ginger right there. Um, those are figs. Figs are a huge hit, and figs are a great one too because you can grow those. You have to bring them in over the winter, if you're in colder climates. But down here we can leave them out all year, and they can, one plant can produce a ton of figs, and they love the figs. Those are my prehensile tailed skinks that are outside. Uh, and those are papaya. So it really depends on where you live, but no matter where you
Right.
live, any of those things that I just mentioned, you can definitely grow and do it justice.
Mhm. And I think, we a lot of times people wrestle with that or struggle with I want my bird to eat with me. I want my bird to a lot of people bring their birds into the dining room or to the kitchen when they're eating and, oh, well, like you said, I gave them the pizza, I gave them the pasta. Um, if you're growing these things, how much fun would it be to make like a salad with edible flowers in it and share it
Mhm.
with your birds? It's that simple and it's doing you a favor because you're eating fresh. It's doing, your birds a favor because they're eating things that exactly where they came from. The other thing is, so there are people out there, myself sometimes included, that kill plants. I admit it. I, have been known to be the death sentence for plants in some cases. And so if you don't have a green thumb, now is the time to go to those farmers markets, and you can talk to it's not like going to the big box store and, you take your chance. Is this really, pesticide free? Is this really, so if you go and you're at the farmers market, you can talk to those folks that are growing things and selling them. You're supporting local economy. And at the same time, you're getting things that are good for yourself and for your birds. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, and don't
just
worry
in
about
case.
waste. Like birds waste. That's just what they do. We wouldn't have rainforests if birds didn't make waste all over the place. So don't worry about waste. And if you want to make use of your waste, start composting. Composting is the easiest and it's the easiest way to make a positive impact on the environment, any environment. And it's so easy to do, so easy to do. You may have noticed in some of the pictures here, I have these black things, these like buckets that are partially buried in my raised beds. And what those, you take those caps off, you dump your stuff in there. They have holes all the way around them, so the little microorganisms and worms and stuff like that can come and go and drag all that nutrient out, and that just makes it that much more effective. I don't have to fertilize because I have all these little microorganisms and things that do it for me. And so composting,
Right.
even if you're just doing it in a little bin in your kitchen, it just makes a huge difference. You're throwing away so much less.
hmm And, and I think that's something that we all kind of need to think about. And, for me, and I know for Jason, we've had this conversation many times with enrichment, the closer you can get to nature, to what your birds might be experiencing if they weren't living in your homes, the closer you can get to that, the better. And this is just one more dimension of that. This is, and so I know there are some people that are probably saying, I just don't have time for that. I just don't. And maybe you don't have time for the grand aviary, or you don't have the funds for the grand aviary that's beautifully planted. But I know you've got time for the sprouts, or you've got time for the microgreens. And, it's something that is, maybe you save on, you didn't have to buy a toy this week because you gave them that tray of microgreens, or, you had some off there and you had them forage for it. So it's really about, there is a trade-off. It takes a little bit of time, but I think it's time well spent. So that's
Yeah,
your
and
banana
sprouts.
plant, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a banana flower. The one of the best resources I found was my local ethnic food market, um, where especially where people from Latin America or India shop for food for their what they use in their own cultures to make food. And there is so much diversity, and I guarantee so many people don't even know those markets exist because they don't think to search for them. But they have the
Right.
most diversity, things that I couldn't find anyplace else. And it was always funny because some people, when I would go in Chicago, there was an Indian market, and people would stop me and say, "What are you doing with this?" Like, looking at me like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, "I'm not cooking for it. It's for my birds." So, like but I mean, there's like moringa. Moringa is a superfood. It's a little leaflet, and I have a moringa growing in the aviary there, and it's just hugely nutrient dense. The birds need very little of it, but it's great, and you can get it there instead of growing it. But
Mhm.
if you can soak some things overnight and offer them the next morning, you've just made a bigger step in giving your bird improved nutrition. And so,
Yeah.
um, I formulated the Thrive blend for ChinaPrairie.com, and that's literally formulated so you can soak it overnight and feed it the next day. You can let it sprout if you want, if you have the time, but soaking something, rinsing it in the morning, feeding it, you just increased their nutrient availability. So
Yeah.
lots of things to diversify the diet.
So it's, there's just so much, and it's I really appreciate you, spending this hour with us, Jason. And there's a lot to think about, a lot to digest. But I think it's really, see what I did there? Um, I think, and Nick didn't have a graphic ready for that. So I think it's super exciting. And I think, I know, being up in the Northeast, we're just starting to get beautiful weather. We're just starting to get, excited about the spring and the summer. And I think this is the time to grab that time outside. And, if you've got a bird that you take outside, you can have that bird out in its carrier or on a harness outside with you, while you're doing these kind of things and just getting some fresh air. And I think we can all benefit from some of that. It's been kind of stuffy lately. So I want to thank you again, Jason. There are a bunch of resources that people have typed in. We've got True Leaf Market, we've got, and then your podcast, the Real Squawk, is also available. That we did one of those the other night.
You were just on our last episode, so you definitely want to check out.
Yeah, so
you can just go to realsquawk.com.
And then there was a question, Jason. Someone mentioned, Joanna mentioned your book with different things to feed your bird. I think she's talking about the cookbook, maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. That was published by someone in the UK.
Okay.
I contributed to it. It's Parrots Fine Cuisine, I believe. And even though it's called a cookbook, it's really about whole food, offering whole food. Because I don't cook anything. I don't believe in cooking anything for the birds. Or raw's best. So yeah, and we'd love to write a book. We would love to write a comprehensive book, and we may be doing that soon. So stay tuned.
My dad. So you guys, my dad. We know. My dad used to always say to me, "You need to write a book. You need to write a book." And if I ever retire, maybe I'll write a book. I don't know. That's the thing. I could retire to write a book. But yeah, I want to thank you again, and I want to thank you all for listening. And I hope that you take some of this, and even if it's, the sprouting, don't think of it as just the sprouting. Think of it as the sprouting or the microgreens, or, maybe you just planted a little herb garden in your window. And your family will thank you because things will be tastier, maybe with some of those fresh herbs. But all right, I want you guys to take care. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So we're getting settled here in Maine. You guys see, I have great new neighbors, Annette and Blaine, and we're gonna go plant shopping tomorrow. But and we're gonna be doing some new cool stuff. We've got the workshop almost all set up. Hopefully we're going to do an upcoming sale in the near future. And so just stay tuned. Next week, I'm super excited. My guest next week is Erin Katzner. Erin is the VP of Education and Outreach at the Peregrine Fund. And we're going to talk about conservation messaging. Erin she's a dear friend and also an amazing, amazing bird person. So hopefully I will see you guys next week. Until then, get out there, get your hands dirty, get in that dirt. It's good for the soul, and do some planting and gardening for you and your parrots. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.